Scarecrow and false equivalence, the fallacies that trick you. Have you ever found yourself in an argument where the other person completely distorted what you said? Or perhaps someone compared two situations that had nothing to do with each other, as if they were identical? If this has happened to you, then you've been a victim of the most dangerous logical fallacies of our time. Today, we're going to unmask the mental tricks that politicians, salespeople, and even your WhatsApp uncle use to manipulate you. Get ready, because after this video you'll never fall into these traps again. Welcome, truth seekers, to the VF Growth Tutorials channel. I am your guide on this journey through the wild territory of logic and reason. In the wild west of information we live in today, logical fallacies are like disguised bandits. They look legitimate at first glance, but they're ready to steal your ability to think critically. The straw man and false equivalence fallacies are two of the most lethal weapons in the arsenal of anyone who wants to convince you of something without using valid arguments. They are everywhere, in political debates, on social media, in advertising, and even in everyday conversations. But don't worry. Today you will learn to identify them and defend yourself against them like a true sheriff of reason. If you want to become immune to manipulation and develop a mind sharper than a bullet, then this video is for you. Let's ride together on this trail of knowledge. In the arid territory of human thought, logical fallacies are like mirages in the desert. They seem real and convincing, but when you get closer, you discover they are nothing but illusions. A fallacy is an error in reasoning that compromises the logic of an argument, rendering it invalid even when it might appear persuasive at first glance. It's like a defective revolver. It can make a lot of noise, but it doesn't hit the target. Fallacies are especially dangerous because they exploit our natural cognitive biases. Our brain, which evolved to make quick decisions in survival situations, often prefers mental shortcuts to careful analysis. This is why fallacious arguments can be so convincing. They activate our primitive instincts of fear, anger, or group belonging, causing us to lower our rational guard. In the digital age we live in, fallacies have spread like wildfire through dry grass. Social media, with its fast pace and character limits, has become the perfect ground for superficial and distorted arguments. Politicians have discovered it's easier to attack distorted versions of opponents' ideas than to confront their real arguments. Salespeople have learned that absurd comparisons can make mediocre products seem irresistible. The problem is that when fallacies become the norm in public debate, democracy itself is at risk. How can we make informed decisions about complex issues if our politicians and opinion leaders insist on using rhetorical tricks instead of solid arguments? It's like trying to navigate a storm with a broken compass. You might be moving, but probably not in the right direction. That's why it's crucial for us to develop our fallacy detector, a skill that allows us to identify when someone is trying to deceive us with flawed arguments. It's not about being cynical or suspicious of everything, but rather about demanding that people who want our attention and our vote present arguments that truly stand up. After all, in a world full of misinformation and half-truths, the ability to think critically is our best defense. Imagine you are in a Wild West duel, but instead of facing the real adversary, someone puts a scarecrow in their place, and you shoot at the straw dummy. This is exactly what happens in the straw man fallacy. Instead of attacking someone's real argument, the person creates a distorted, exaggerated, or simplified version of it, and then easily destroys it. The straw man fallacy works in three simple but devastating steps. First, the person takes the opponent's original argument. Second, they distort this argument, usually by exaggerating it, oversimplifying it, or taking it completely out of context. Third, they attack this distorted version as if it were the real argument, declaring victory when they manage to demolish it. It's like knocking down a straw dummy and then boasting about having defeated a wrestling champion. A classic example occurs in environmental debates. When someone suggests we need more regulations to protect nature, the opponent might distort this by saying they want to destroy all jobs and go back to the Stone Age. Do you notice the distortion? The original argument was about specific regulations, but it was transformed into an extremist caricature about destroying the entire modern economy. In politics, we see this constantly. If a candidate proposes improving the public health system, the opponent might distort it. He wants to turn our country into a communist dictatorship where the government controls even when you can cough. If someone advocates for greater border security, they might be caricatured as, "She hates all immigrants and wants to build a giant wall with machine guns." These straw men are much easier to attack than the real nuanced proposals. What makes the straw man fallacy so insidious is that it works especially well in environments where people have little time or patience to verify facts. On social media, for example, a well-constructed straw man can spread much faster than a detailed explanation of someone's actual position. That's why we should always ask, did this person actually say that? Or are they putting words in their mouth? Where can I verify the original statement? Remember, attacking a straw man might be impressive to the audience, but it proves absolutely nothing about the strength of the real arguments. If the straw man fallacy is like fighting a straw dummy, false equivalence is like comparing a Colt 45 with a slingshot and saying they are equally dangerous. False equivalence happens when someone presents two or more situations as being equivalent, when in reality, there are important differences that make the comparison invalid or misleading. This fallacy is particularly common in political discussions, where people try to defend questionable behaviors by pointing to supposed similarities with the opposing side. All politicians are corrupt, they say, as if stealing $1,000 were the same as embezzling millions. Or, both sides are violent, comparing a shove at a protest to a terrorist attack. It's like saying a mosquito bite and a gunshot wound are equally dangerous because both cause injury. In the media, we see false equivalences when journalists, in an attempt to appear impartial, give the same weight to the opinions of experts and people with no qualifications whatsoever. This happens when a show invites a climatologist with decades of experience and a blogger with no scientific training to debate climate change, as if both opinions had equal value. It's like putting an award-winning chef and someone who can barely fry an egg on equal footing to discuss cooking. The problem with false equivalence is that it creates an illusion of balance where none should exist. Not all opinions are equally valid. Not all mistakes have the same gravity, nor do all actions have the same consequences. When we treat different things as if they were the same, we lose the ability to make proportional and fair judgments. It's like applying the same sentence to someone who steals a loaf of bread and someone who robs a bank. False equivalence is also a powerful tool for those who want to deflect attention from their own problems. Instead of defending their actions, it's much easier to point to someone on the opposite side and shout, "But they do it too." Even if the comparison is completely disproportionate, it serves to confuse the public and create the impression that everyone is the same, which conveniently removes responsibility from everyone. To identify a false equivalence, always ask, are these situations truly comparable? Are the circumstances similar? Are the consequences proportional? Are the contexts equivalent? If the answer is no to any of these questions, you are probably dealing with a false equivalence. Remember, not all that glitters is gold, and not everything that is compared is actually comparable. Identifying logical fallacies is like developing the keen eye of an experienced doctor. The more you practice, the better you get at detecting the symptoms. The first crucial skill is learning to ask the right question. Wait a minute, does that really make sense? It's impressive how this simple question can unmask arguments that seem solid at first glance. To detect a straw man, develop the habit of checking if the person actually said what is being attacked. When someone claims, "so-and-so wants to destroy traditional families," look for the original statement. Often, you'll discover that so-and-so merely suggested company daycare or extended paternity leave, things that, let's be honest, are far from destroying families. It's like that childhood game of telephone. The message gets distorted until it's unrecognizable. To identify false equivalences, practice the exercise of proportion. When someone makes a comparison, ask yourself, do these things really carry the same weight? If someone compares a politician who was 5 minutes late with another who embezzled health funds, you can quickly realize that the equivalence doesn't hold up. It's like comparing a traffic ticket with armed robbery. Both are infractions, but they are definitely not on the same level. Pay special attention to words that indicate overgeneralization. All, always, Never. Everyone does it. These words are warning signs that usually accompany fallacies. In real life, very few things are absolute. When someone says, all young people are lazy, or politicians always lie, you can be sure you're dealing with a generalization that doesn't hold up in reality. Another valuable trick is the inversion test. When someone makes a claim, try to reverse the roles or change the context. If the argument doesn't work in the inverted situation, there's probably something wrong with the original logic. For example, if someone justifies an action by saying, but the other side does it too, ask yourself, if your child made that justification, would you accept it? Usually the answer is no, and that reveals the weakness of the argument. Finally, develop a healthy suspicion of arguments that evoke very strong emotions. Fear, anger, and indignation can be legitimate reactions to real situations, but they are also the emotions most exploited by fallacious arguments. When you feel your emotional temperature rising quickly, pause and analyze the argument more calmly. Often you'll discover that you are being emotionally manipulated to accept flawed logic. The straw man and false equivalence fallacies persist because they exploit fundamental characteristics of human psychology. Our brain, shaped by millions of years of evolution, was designed to make quick decisions in life or death situations, not to analyze complex arguments in civilized debates. This evolutionary heritage makes us vulnerable to mental shortcuts that, while useful on the African savanna, can harm us in the information age. The straw man fallacy works because our brain loves to simplify complex information. It's much easier to process a caricatured version of an idea than its original form, with all its nuances and details. Moreover, attacking a straw man provides immediate psychological satisfaction. It's like winning an easy fight. Who doesn't like the feeling of being right and seeing the opponent defeated? The problem is that this victory is illusory, based on a distorted version of reality. False equivalence appeals to another powerful cognitive bias, our need to appear fair and balanced. In a society that values impartiality, it can seem wise and moderate to treat all positions as equivalent. I'll listen to both sides, we think, feeling morally superior. But this false moderation can prevent us from recognizing when one side is clearly wrong, or when the evidence points decisively in one direction. These fallacies also exploit our tribal tendencies. The straw man works best when it confirms our existing prejudices about the other side. If we already distrust a political group, it will be much easier to accept an exaggerated version of their positions. False equivalence, in turn, allows us to maintain our moral superiority by saying, everyone is the same. A position that places us above the fray and makes us feel smarter than the fanatics on both sides. The modern media environment greatly amplifies the power of these fallacies. The speed of digital information favors simplifications over nuances, and the click-based business model rewards content that generates strong emotional reactions. A well-constructed straw man can go viral much faster than a careful, balanced analysis. A controversial false equivalence generates more engagement than a detailed study of the real differences between positions. Perhaps the most insidious aspect is that these fallacies create a vicious cycle. When politicians and opinion leaders discover that straw men and false equivalences work, they use them more and more. The public, constantly bombarded with fallacious arguments, begins to think this is normal and even to expect this type of debate. Gradually, we lose the collective ability to distinguish between legitimate argumentation and rhetorical manipulation. It's as if we are gradually losing our immunity to a mental virus that corrupts our reasoning ability. Now that we know the enemy, it's time to build our defense strategy. The first line of defense against fallacies is to develop what philosophers call charity of interpretation. Always try to understand the strongest and most reasonable version of someone's argument, not the weakest. When someone presents a position that seems absurd, ask, "Could you clarify your point better? I want to make sure I'm understanding correctly." This approach not only prevents you from creating your own straw men, but also forces the other person to be more precise. When you identify a straw man being used against you, don't let frustration take over. Instead of shouting, "That's not what I said," calmly reply, "I believe there might have been a misunderstanding. My position is," and clearly restate your original argument. Then, ask if the person would like to respond to your actual position, not the distorted version. It's like redirecting a derailed train. You gently put it back on track. To combat false equivalences, use the power of specific questions. When someone makes a dubious comparison, ask, "In what specific aspects do you consider these situations equivalent?" Or, "Could you explain why you consider these consequences proportional?" These questions force the person to examine their logic more closely, often revealing the flaws in the comparison. Develop the habit of meta-language, talking about how we are talking. When you notice that a discussion is getting lost in fallacies, pause and say, "I've noticed we're straying from the central arguments. How about we get back to the main points?" Or, before continuing with comparisons, "Can we first agree on the basic facts?" This technique is like being the judge of your own debate. You keep the rules in mind and ensure they are applied. Practice the art of confirmatory reformulation. When someone presents an argument, rephrase it in your own words and ask for confirmation. "If I understand correctly, your position is that. Is that right?" This technique not only demonstrates that you are listening carefully, but also prevents discussions from getting lost in misunderstandings. It's like checking if you're both looking at the same map before discussing the best route. Finally, remember that your goal should not be to win debates, but to seek truth and mutual understanding. When you encounter a fallacy, treat it as an opportunity to elevate the conversation, not as ammunition to attack the opponent. Say things like, "I think we can find a more productive way to approach this issue," or, "How about we explore this idea in more depth?" This constructive approach can transform unproductive confrontations into genuine dialogues, creating an environment where the best ideas can emerge and thrive. We've reached the end of another journey on the trail of knowledge, and I want to thank each of you deeply for riding with me this far. I know that in a world full of distractions, you chose to invest your precious time to develop more critical thinking, and this shows a wisdom that few possess today. If this content helped you see through the masks of logical fallacies, don't forget to leave a clever like. Subscribe to the VF Growth Tutorials channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any adventures through the territories of reason. And share this video with that person who always falls into these rhetorical traps. Now tell me in the comments, which of these fallacies do you encounter most often in your daily life? Was it the distorted straw man, or the cunning false equivalence? Or maybe you have even more creative examples of these manipulations? I want to read all your stories and experiences in this comment section that is pure gold. The adventure doesn't stop here, pioneers. YouTube is already preparing the next perfect video to continue expanding our minds and sharpening our critical sense even more. Just take a look at the screen now and click to continue this incredible journey of discovery and learning with us. Until the next encounter, always keep your fallacy detectors well calibrated, and remember, in a world full of straw men and false equivalences, truth lies with those who know how to ask the right questions. Thank you very much, and see you next time, everyone.